In the coastal town of Mombasa, where the ocean's whispers intertwined with the rustling palms, lived a young fisherman named Juma. His life was simple, his days spent pulling in the bounty of the sea with his skillful hands. But Juma was also a dreamer who often found staring at the stars, longing for something beyond the ordinary. Little did he know that his yearning would soon lead him into a nightmare far beyond his wildest dreams. One evening, as the sun set, casting a golden hue over the horizon, Juma felt an inexplicable pull. The sensation was familiar yet strange, an uneasy feeling that settled deep in his gut, as if the ocean itself was calling him. He tried to shake it off, but the pull grew stronger, compelling him to leave his boat and follow the winding path that led away from the shore. As night fell, Juma found himself on the outskirts of the town, standing before an old, abandoned mansion. The mansion loomed over him, its once grand facade now crumbling and overgrown with vines. The locals avoided this place, whispering of curses and ghosts that haunted its darkened halls. Juma had always dismissed these tales as mere superstition, but now, standing before the mansion, he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He turned to leave, but something stopped him. A soft, melodic voice called out to him from the shadows. "Juma," it whispered, carried on the wind like a ghostly lullaby. "Juma, help me." His heart pounded in his chest as he slowly turned back towards the mansion. There, standing on the veranda, was a girl, her long, dark hair flowing like silk, her eyes gleaming like stars in the pale moonlight. She was breathtakingly beautiful, yet there was something unsettling about her, something that made Juma's blood run cold. "Who are you?" Juma stammered, taking a step back. The girl smiled, but it was a sad, haunting smile that only deepened Juma's unease. "My name is Layla," she replied, her voice as soft as the breeze. "I need your help, Juma. Please, don't leave me." Juma wanted to run, every instinct screaming at him to flee from this place, but something held him in place. "Help you?" he managed to say, his voice trembling. "How?" Layla's eyes darkened, filled with a sorrow that seemed to reach into his very soul. "I am a ghost, bound to this mansion by a terrible curse. I was betrayed, left to die here alone, and now my spirit cannot find peace. I need you to uncover the truth of what happened to me, to help me find justice." A chill ran through Juma's body. He had had enough. I can't," he stuttered, backing away. "I'm sorry, but I can't help you." But as he turned to run, Layla's voice echoed in his mind, growing more desperate. "Juma, please. Don't leave me. Don't leave me alone again." Juma's heart pounded as he sprinted down the path, the sound of his footsteps drowned out by the frantic beating of his heart. He didn't look back, not even when he heard the soft whisper of Layla's voice following him, growing louder, more insistent. "Juma! Juma!" He raced through the narrow streets of the town, the shadows of the night closing in around him. But no matter how fast he ran, the voice stayed with him, the cold presence of the ghost clinging to him like a shroud. His fear grew, transforming into sheer terror as he realized he couldn't escape her. Juma burst through the door of his small hut, slamming it shut behind him. He leaned against it, gasping for breath, his mind reeling. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the sound of his ragged breathing. But then, the temperature in the room plummeted, and the shadows began to shift and writhe. A soft knock came at the door, and Juma's heart nearly stopped. He backed away slowly, his eyes wide with fear as the door creaked open, seemingly of its own accord. There, standing in the doorway, was Layla, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and desperation. "Juma, you can't escape me," she whispered, her voice carrying an edge of despair. "I need your help, and I won't rest until you give it." Juma's knees gave out, and he collapsed to the floor, trembling. "Please, leave me alone," he begged, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I'm just a fisherman. I can't help you." Layla glided towards him, her feet barely touching the ground. She knelt beside him, her hand reaching out to touch his cheek. Her touch was icy, sending a jolt of cold through his body. "You're the only one who can help me, Juma. Please, don't leave me alone." Tears filled Juma's eyes as he looked up at her, seeing the pain and anguish in her gaze. Despite his fear, he felt a pang of sympathy for the lost soul before him. "What do you want me to do?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Layla's eyes brightened with hope. "Come back to the mansion," she said softly. "There's a hidden room, a place where I was trapped. You must find it and uncover the truth. Only then can I be free." Juma hesitated, his mind racing. Every part of him screamed to refuse, to find some way to rid himself of this ghostly presence. But deep down, he knew there was no escape. Layla would never leave him until her curse was broken. With a resigned sigh, Juma nodded. "I'll do it," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'll help you." Layla's face lit up with a bittersweet smile. "Thank you, Juma," she whispered. "You don't know what this means to me." The next night, under the cover of darkness, Juma returned to the mansion. The air was thick with tension, and the shadows seemed to press in around him as he approached the decaying structure. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the scene. As he stepped through the gate, the wind picked up, howling through the empty halls of the mansion. The front door creaked open, welcoming him into the darkness within. Juma swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he stepped inside. Juma's heart pounded in his chest as he fled the mansion, his footsteps echoing against the cold, cracked tiles of the hallway. He didn't dare look back, though he could feel the chilling presence of Layla trailing behind him. The mansion's decayed walls seemed to close in on him, the shadows deepening with every step, but the haunting glow of Layla's figure remained, casting an eerie light on the path ahead. He burst through the mansion's grand, rotting doors and stumbled into the night. The air outside was thick with humidity, the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore almost drowned out by his ragged breaths. But even as he reached the edge of the mansion's overgrown garden, he felt a cold touch on his shoulder. Juma froze. He could feel Layla's icy fingers through the thin fabric of his shirt, as if the cold was seeping into his very bones. He turned slowly, fear tightening his throat. Layla stood before him, her ethereal glow even more pronounced in the moonlight. Her once beautiful face was now twisted in anguish, her eyes, those haunting, glowing eyes, pleading silently with him. "Please," she whispered, her voice like the rustle of dead leaves. "Don't leave me here. I need your help, Juma. You're the only one who can free me." Juma wanted to run, to escape the clutches of this ghostly apparition, but something in Layla's voice held him in place. It wasn't just fear, it was the sorrow in her eyes, the desperation that seemed to pour from her very soul. He could feel her pain, her longing to be freed from whatever curse bound her to this place. What do you want from me?" Juma managed to stammer, his voice trembling. Layla drifted closer, her form almost transparent in the pale light. In the mansion, there is a room that has been locked for many years. Inside, you will find my remains. They were hidden away, forgotten, but they must be buried properly, on hallowed ground, for my spirit to be at peace. Juma's mind raced. Entering that cursed mansion again was the last thing he wanted, but the sorrow in Layla's voice weighed heavily on his heart. He could see the torment in her eyes, the endless suffering she had endured for what must have been decades. I don't know if I can do that, Juma said, his voice barely a whisper. Layla reached out, her cold hand brushing against his cheek. You're stronger than you think, Juma. The sea has given you strength, the courage to face the unknown. Please, help me find peace. Juma swallowed hard, his throat dry. He knew what he had to do, even if the thought of it terrified him. All right, he said finally, his voice steadying. I'll help you. But you have to promise that once this is over, you'll leave me in peace. Layla nodded, a small, sad smile playing on her lips. I promise, Juma. I promise. With a deep breath, Juma turned back towards the mansion, its dark silhouette looming ominously against the night sky. The path ahead was filled with danger, with the unknown, but he knew he couldn't turn back now. Not with Layla's tortured soul hanging in the balance. Together, they walked back towards the mansion, its ancient doors creaking open as if welcoming them into the depths of its dark secrets. The air inside was colder than before, the shadows longer, as if the mansion itself was aware of their presence. Layla led him through the winding hallways, her glow illuminating the way as they descended deeper into the heart of the mansion. The walls seemed to whisper, the sound of distant voices echoing through the corridors, but Juma kept his focus on the path ahead, determined to see this through. Finally, they reached a door, large, ornate, and covered in dust and cobwebs. Layla stopped in front of it, her hand hovering just above the doorknob. This is it, she said softly, her voice trembling. Beyond this door is the room where my remains are hidden. Juma's hand shook as he reached for the doorknob. It was cold to the touch, sending a shiver down his spine. He hesitated for a moment, then, with a deep breath, he turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room beyond was dark, the air heavy with the scent of decay. A single beam of moonlight filtered through a crack in the ceiling, illuminating a small, decrepit bed in the center of the room. On the bed lay a skeletal figure, its bones covered in a thin layer of dust, the tattered remnants of a once beautiful dress still clinging to its frame. Juma felt a wave of nausea wash over him, but he forced himself to step forward. This was it, the final resting place of Layla's physical body. He could feel her presence beside him, her ghostly form hovering just above the remains. Please, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Take me from this place, Juma. Bury me by the sea, where I can finally be free. Juma nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had to do. He carefully gathered the bones, wrapping them in the remnants of the dress. The air in the room seemed to grow colder as he walked, the shadows pressing in closer, as if the mansion itself was reluctant to let Layla go. With the remains in hand, Juma left the mansion, Layla's spirit following close behind. The journey to the coast was long, the night air biting and cold, but Juma didn't stop until he reached a secluded spot by the sea, a place where the waves gently kissed the shore, and the stars shone brightly overhead. He dug a grave with his bare hands, the sun slipping through his fingers as he walked. Finally, he laid Layla's remains to rest, covering them with the soft earth. As he did, he felt a warmth spread through the air, as if the very night itself was lifting.